Hello and welcome to this introduction to Solidworks. Today we are going to be learning the basics of this program. Solidworks is a 3D CAD program. So 3D is 3 dimensions and CAD is computer-aided design. So basically what we're going to be doing is making something in 3 dimensions on our computer. So this is what we are kind of working towards at the end of today. We have this chair. You can see that I can kind of move it around. I can see all of the different designs. And this is really what makes it a 3D CAD software. If it was a 2D CAD software, it would look kind of flat like a piece of paper. SolidWorks is really awesome and super powerful. It's used professionally around the world. And it also has a very steep learning curve. So be patient with this process. And try not to get frustrated. So before we move into actually creating this ourselves, let's talk a little bit more about how SolidWorks works. So basically, in SolidWorks, we start in 2 dimensions and then we move to 3 dimensions. Now, there are programs that are just in 2 dimensions. So an example of a 2D software is AutoCAD. And there are other 3D CAD softwares. Remember, CAD is computer-aided design. Oops, ignore my messy handwriting. Other examples of 3D CAD softwares include Tinkercad. So this is something that I use with my younger students. It's available online. You can make a free account. And Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is more similar to SolidWorks, but I still prefer SolidWorks over Fusion 360. So Fusion is a little bit newer and has some issues. So Tinkercad is great for simple projects. I also use it with younger students. So for example, if I am making a cube just to test my 3D printer and I just want something quick and fast, then I will use my Tinkercad to make that file because it is just quick and easy, whereas SolidWorks has so much powerful ability that would kind of just be wasted on something like that and would ultimately end up taking longer and being more trouble than it's worth. Alright, so back to how SolidWorks actually works. So we start out with a 2-dimensional thing. So we make what is called a sketch. And then we turn that sketch into a feature. So a sketch is 2-dimensional. It's drawn just like it is on that paper. And then an example of a feature is an extrude. So an extrude is where I kind of take this, I can think about taking my square and kind of pulling it up to create a 3D object, right? So I can go whoop. And I can turn that flat square that I drew into a cube. I'll admit that I'm not an artist, I am an engineer, so stay with me despite bad drawings, right? So this is called an extrude. There are lots of other features though. So one of them is an extruded cut. So for example, I could draw another square within this and I could do an extruded cut, and then I could cut out a square into the middle of this. But it starts with that 2-dimensional thing, and then again, it moves into 3 dimensions. We also have what's called a revolved cut. So an example of that would be if I drew like a half circle, and then I took this half circle and I rotate it all the way around this center line here. I'm not even going to try to draw this one, but this makes a sphere, right? If you take this and it goes whoop, all the way around. Another example is a swept cut. So what basically this will do is if I take, for example, a circle, and then I draw kind of a cool line of whatever I want, then I can sweep that shape along that curve to make this like really funky 3-dimensional object. Now these are things that you can't do in a more simple software like Tinkercad. And so again, super powerful, but learning when you need to use which of these, how to manage all of the different options that you have in SolidWorks can be a little bit tricky. So, like I said, what we're going to be working on today is designing a simple chair. So if we think about what a chair looks like, we've got kind of the seat of the chair, and then we have the back of the chair, and it's got some legs. And then on the back, we are going to put a little bit of decoration. The things that we're going to be using today are an extrude and, ooh, that's, okay, again, excuse my handwriting, extruded cut, or cut extrude, yeah, no, it's extruded cut. So these are the two features we're going to be using. We're also going to be using some other tools within the software. So we're going to start with number 1, the seat. From there, we're going to draw the back. And from there, we are going to draw the decoration. Or I say draw, we're going to create. I'm going to show you how to do the decoration kind of 2 ways. One, by kind of doing it by hand. And the other one, using relations to kind of make everything just pop and just work really nicely. Relations are super important. We love relations. If you're using them right, they will make your work and your life so much easier. After that, we are going to put on our legs. And we're going to do that using a pattern. But I'm also going to show you first, as a way to practice what we did in number 3, how to do it with relations. Alright, so that is what our goal is to get through today. You always want to draw things out before you actually create them. It's just going to be way easier, especially as you're just learning, because trying to figure out the software and figure out what you want to design at the same time is really difficult. So our next step is going to be to actually open up Solidworks, so go ahead and do that. And you should get something, yours will look, oops, ignore that. Yours should look something like this, right? You should have kind of empty screen. I have a couple of files open and I'll show you why in a minute. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to press this new button. And it's going to give you 3 options. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Yep. So we have an option for a part, an assembly, and a drawing. So what you've seen so far, what I showed you before, is a part. It is a single piece of a thing that you are making. But an assembly is where we take multiple pieces and put them together. This is particularly useful for things that have like moving parts. So for example, if you have a system of gears, you don't want them to actually be connected. You want multiple parts to be assembled together. And third, we have a drawing. So basically, this is something that you can share with other people to show what your object is. It's nice and easy. It prints as a PDF. And for example, you can give this to a manufacturer so that they know exactly how you want your part to be machined. So before, you are going to select part and press OK. But I'm going to show you real quick kind of what this looks like. Oh wow, we've got something interesting going on here. There we go. So this is my chair, which is not what I wanted. I wanted this. So this is a part. It's just a screw. I've downloaded this part file. You can see we've got like all of these threads here. We've got like the hex. This is what this actual 90044A279 black oxide, yeah, blah, 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 screw looks like. But this is something that's hard to share with other people, and so we also have this drawing file here. And again, you can see this is the part number, this is exactly what the part is, and it tells you it's this long, it's 1.5 inches long, and with the head being 0.06 inches, it tells you exactly what kind of threads it has, it shows you what the top looks like, so that is what a drawing is, so that you kind of know what that is if you ever run into it. But we are just going to be starting off with a simple part file. So go ahead and choose part. Oh, I don't know why that's showing up there instead of, yeah, there we go. Part, and press OK. All right, so one of the most important or most useful toolbars that I add on first thing every time I start something or use SolidWorks on a new computer is this bar right here. So these are our standard views. Basically what happens if I click on one of these, this is the front, back, it shows me that side, and it just makes my life a little bit easier. If you would like to add that in, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the tools, and you're not going to be able to see this, but you're going to go all the way down to customize. It's like third from the bottom, not customize menu, customize. And this, oh, come on. Sorry, this is being silly. Let me show the window capture so that you can see it. We want our customize menu. Great. So it's going to give you this customize menu. Under toolbars, you're going to scroll down until you find this standard views. Go ahead and click standard views, this little check mark, and that will show up. I would highly recommend doing that just because it is going to make your life a little bit easier. So, now we have our file open. We know that we are starting with the base of our chair, but how on earth do we get started, right? There's all of these menus and they can be kind of intimidating. The first thing you want to notice is this area right here. So this is where anything that you do, any sketches, any features, they're all going to kind of add to the bottom right here. These planes are where you're going to draw. Anytime you draw something in 2 dimensions, anytime you do a sketch, you need to do it either on a plane or on a surface. So a flat part of something or on one of these planes. You can create custom planes, but that will be for another lesson. So in this case, I'm going to start with the top plane, right? We can see front, top, right. Top plane makes sense for me because what I am planning on doing, and so you can see this is kind of crooked right now if I've clicked on this, and what I can do is I can press this top button and it's going to show me, it's going to get it all aligned for me. So that is why I like using or having these this standard view thing up. Another way to get around, and a really important way to get around, is that the scroll wheel on your mouse. You're going to want to use a mouse with this. It is so much harder without a physical mouse if you're on a laptop. So if you're on if you have a mouse, the center scroll wheel, if you click down on that scroll wheel and then drag, it will rotate things for you. And then you can zoom in and out to get closer and further away. So that's the main way to navigate. You can change those controls if you would like to, but this is the SolidWorks standard. So I'm going to put this back to the top. And I am going to draw the flat part of my chair. So if we go over here, what I'm going to draw is I'm going to draw a square like this that is the base of the chair, and then I'm going to extrude it downwards to make the 3-dimensional seat. Okay, so this is my step 1. So I'm going to go over to Sketch, so this tab right here, and I'm going to press this sketch button. If I'm not selected on any plane when I do this, it's going to ask me which plane I want, and I should choose it. If you've already selected the top plane, then it will just work from there. Then I am going to, you can use the corner rectangle if you'd like. There's a bunch of different types of rectangles. You can just click on this drop down to see that. I'm going to use a center rectangle. So what that means is I'm going to click in the center, and then once off to the side. Now, it's not important that you get this to look absolutely perfect, because what we're going to do is we're going to use some dimensions to make this look the way we want it to. Okay, so now I have my rectangle. It's not a square. It's not perfect. I can scroll down and I can see, oh wow, I've got all these dimensions. They're definitely not quite square. But to make this look a size that I want it to, I can use Smart Dimension. So I want this to be a 2-foot by 2-foot chair. That seems reasonable to me. With this Smart Dimension tool, I can click on a line, and I can say, oh wow, 3 inches. That is definitely not big enough. I want this to be 24. Okay. And then I'm going to go down to here, to this line, and say, okay, this line is also going to be 24. So now I have a 24 by 24, and this right here, this check mark, is how I exit from Smart Dimension. The escape key will also be your friend, especially as you're learning. If things are just getting really weird, just kind of hit escape a couple times, and it'll get you out of whatever you're in. Okay, so now I have this sketch, and I wanted to turn it into an extrude. So again, if I'm editing my sketch, then I can just go over to features and I can do an extruded boss base. If you happen to have hit exit sketch, then what you can do is you can kind of do it the other way. You can do this, you can hit extruded boss, and then you can select the sketch. So there's a number of different ways to do it, but the important thing is you want to make sure you are selecting the correct sketch when you're extruding. Right now it's easy because we only have one thing drawn. So I'm going to extrude this. So that means kind of turn it into 3 dimensions, and I'm going to make my seat 1 inch thick by changing this. This means, so we're going from the sketch plane, so from where I drew it. Then blind means it's just going to go the amount that I tell it to, regardless of what's in the way. And then there's some other options for different directions or thin features, but really so you can do up to surface or up to body, a bunch of other stuff here. You can choose those, you can play with those. And the amount, the distance, are the most important. If I want this to go the other way, I can just click this button and it will go the other way, right? When it looks good, then you're going to go ahead and press that check mark. All right, so this looks nice. I have my seat. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to add on a back. So my back side is this side. If you want to check, you can just click the back and this is your back side. There are multiple ways that you can add on a back. If you would like, you can draw kind of a thin rectangle right here on this and then extrude it upwards. What I'm going to do is add a big 24-inch rectangle on the back this way. So if we go back to our drawing, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, oh, this might be tricky. I'm a terrible artist. This isn't going to work out the way I want it to. Okay, so if I have my square, let's just pretend I drew this reasonably. I'm going to draw a big rectangle up this way, and I'm going to kind of extrude it backwards to create the back. Yes, hopefully that kind of makes sense. Again, excuse my drawing, I'm not an artist. All right, so this is my back. I'm going to double check though. This is my back. Yes. And what I'm going to do is I am going to, instead of using a center rectangle, I'm going to use a corner rectangle. And I'm going to select this surface, right? Remember I said you can always select the surface beforehand and then tell it you want to sketch, and it will know which one you want. Or you can say that you want to sketch something, and then it's going to ask you which surface you want to draw on. So I've got my corner rectangle selected. I'm going to select a corner and then drag it up. Now, there are a couple of different ways to do this. The first is to continue what we did before. Right? I can say this is 24 inches and this is 24 inches. Great. That looks nice. Now, the one thing that's not super great about this is that if I were to change the size of the base of my chair, then this would stay 24 inches and it would be the wrong side. So this is where we start getting into relations. Remember I said those are going to be really important and really helpful. So if I want, instead of dimensioning both sides of this, I can delete this dimension. And so say this is a little bit off. What I can do is I can use a relation here, and I can say that this line, and I'm going to control and click this other line, not the point. I don't want the point. Okay, try that again. This line and this line, and you'll see I get this menu, this properties menu up. And what I want to say is that these two lines are collinear, right? They are the same line. So now this is going to snap to here. Don't follow along with this part. I just want to show you something. So if I go back to this original sketch and I say, okay, just kidding, I actually wanted this to be like 36 inches. Then what will happen is this square of my back automatically expands, which is pretty cool. And for this, you know, it's not the most important thing in the world that our design kind of adapts to the changes that we make. But as you get more and more complicated designs, if you can have relations in there, it makes your life so much easier if you realize afterward that you typed in a number wrong. So like I said, very important to keep track of that as much as you can. Okay, so now we have this sketch and we want to turn it into a feature again. So I'm going to go back over here, choose Extruded Boss Base. I've already selected this sketch, so it should just automatically go. If I want my chair to be exactly 24 inches, I need to switch my direction. See how now this is going inward, so my seat, the size of my whole chair stays square, stays 24 inches. You can leave it this way if you want. It's totally up to you. So now I have the beginnings of a chair. You can put this on the ground, call it a chair, but it is still missing some things, okay? So we are going to, I'm going to change the order. I said I was going to do the back decorations and then the legs, but let's start with those legs, all right? So we want to look at the bottom. And again, I'm clicking my scroll wheel and dragging to look. It's easier now that I have kind of a reference with that back on there. I'm going to want to draw on this bottom space. I'm going to sketch. And I'm going to again use that corner rectangle. And in one of these corners, I am going to draw a square. I'm just going to put some nice little square legs on here. And I'm going to smart dimension that. I'm going to make it like a 3-inch by 3-inch. Oh, that looks really small, but that's okay. We're going to trust that our wood is strong for this chair. All right, so we have this 3-inch by 3-inch place where we're going to put our leg. Now, don't extrude this quite yet because you can extrude kind of multiple pieces of a sketch at once to make a single extrusion. One way I could do this is I could go over here and I could say, okay, let's draw this other one. I could smart dimension each of those sides of it, right? But that's going to take a while. So way one would be to go through and do smart dimension, smart dimension, smart dimension. But I don't really want to do that. Another way to do it is you can select the line, one line of one line of another, and you can say that these are equal. And that is going to make it so that they are the same size without you having to smart dimension each one. But if you would like to reach peak laziness and really peak efficiency, then you can use a pattern, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to select the thing that I just drew. And I'm going to go to Linear Sketch Pattern right here. I'll click on that, and this is going to pop up, and it's going to be mildly overwhelming because there's a bunch of stuff on here. But the important thing is we are going to go in the x-axis direction and the y-axis direction, and we want 2 instances, so 1, 2 in each direction. 1, 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, the distance between each instance. So right now it's 0.1. So if I zoom in real close, you can see that there are multiple squares here, but they're basically just stacked on top of each other. So instead of 0.1 inches, I want this to be, I believe, 21 inches because each of these is 3 inches, so 21 plus 3 is 24. And see, now I've got that perfectly in that corner. We're going to do the same thing for the y direction. So right now, nothing is happening in the y direction because it says only one instance, only one drawing, one pattern kind of, and we want that to be 2. So now we can see again, if I zoom in, I can see that there is a kind of second one just barely off. And again, we want that to be not 0.1 inches, but 21 inches. Woo, okay, now that's the wrong direction, right? That's not even on our chair. Just change the direction by clicking this button here. So this looks really good. The pro of this is you don't have to go and draw a square in every corner. The con of this is that if we do change the size of our chair, we do have to come back and change these numbers. So keep that in mind. There's pros and cons to every way of doing things in here. I'm going to press the OK button. If you have ever done that and are like, oh my gosh, now I put that in the wrong place, everything's wrong, what you can do is click on one of your sketches, and then you should see this little symbol coming up. This is my pattern symbol. If I double click on that, it's going to open up, oops, that's not the right thing. So if I click on this, I should be able to edit the pattern. Oh, here we go. I think if we click on this patterned. There we go, edit pattern. So if I right click on pattern right here, and again, I'm sorry all these menus aren't showing up for you, then there's an edit pattern option, and it will bring you back to that menu you were at before. All right, so now we have the beginnings of our legs, but we need to extrude them. Yay! And this would be a really short chair with only a 1 inch, so we're going to make it 24 inches because that is the number of the day. Oh wow, look at that. Looking leggy. Great. Chair. Success. All right, but this is not an exciting enough chair for us. We want a decorative chair. We want some stuff on the back and an opportunity to practice our cut extrudes. Again, just like with the legs, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. And I think this is why SolidWorks can be a little bit overwhelming, is you have to make all of these choices. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of different ways. So the first way is going to be to literally just draw on all of the things and use the math, right? So I'm going to click here. I'm going to tell it that I want to do a corner rectangle. And let's see, I'll put it like here-ish, and I want 3 of these. So I've drawn my first rectangle. I'm going to draw 3 of them all next to each other. And you can see it's a little bit wonky. Now I can go back to my original paper, and I can say, all right, so I know that I have 24 inches here, and I want to have like 3 of these guys, and so if I do, like, each of these is 2 inches, and blah, 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 and you can kind of like figure out exactly how far apart everything is, and then you can input all those numbers into your smart dimension, and it'll work. But again, it won't resize automatically, and you may end up being frustrated with it, like I get annoyed with it. What I like to do instead is use relations. So let's go back over to SolidWorks. And I know this is 24 inches, and let's say I want each of these to be 3 inches, because I think that'll look good. Again, you can go and you can dimension each of these, or use relations. That way, if you ever want to change the size of these cutouts, you only have to change one number. So I'm going to say that those 3 things, I'm control clicking to get each of those, are equal. Awesome. Actually, with these ones, I'm going to say they are collinear. And what that is going to do is going to make it so that they all line up top and are in a perfectly straight line. All right. Then I'm going to say, let's see, maybe these holes right here, the length of them is going to be 18 inches. Beautiful. And I'm going to say, okay, now all of these are equal. Amazing. If I don't do collinear here, it's going to snap them all directly on top of each other, which is definitely not what I want. Cool. So now I've got these, but do you see how they're horribly not centered, and they're probably not equally spaced? I am going to use some construction lines in order to fix that. So if I go up here to my lines, if I hit the drop-down menu, I get a center line option. It's a dotted line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this line and connect it to this. So anytime you see that dot like that, that's the center point. So I click the center point, and I drag it over to this center point. So do you see how that is not horizontal at all? What I'm going to do is say this is horizontal, and watch what happens. Woo! Look, all of those are now centered. And if you want to be sure that that's actually what happened, you can use a smart dimension and say, okay, this is 2.5 inches, and this is 2.5 inches, right? So we've just connected our center from here to here and said that has to be horizontal, which means these also have to be centered. And because these are collinear, I don't even need to do it to the other 2. I am, though, going to continue adding center lines. So from here to here, and then I'm hitting escape to get rid of that, and then I'm going to do it again from here to here, escape. There might be a faster way to do that. I usually just hit the escape key, though. And then from here to here. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because I can say that I want this and this to be equal. And let's say I'll smart dimension it too. I'll say that this is, well, it's 3.03 inches, so I'll make it, I'll make it 4. I think they look nice, a little bit spread out. Okay, so now these are both 4 inches, but you can see we're still not centered. And rather than, doing math, figuring it out, which might be appropriate in some cases, but in this case, this is decorative, I'm going to select these 2 lines and say that they are equal. And now those are perfectly centered in the back of my chair. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to choose an extruded cut. And it's going to pop up this cut menu. So this is doing a blind cut, which does a 24-inch, regardless of what is there. Again, if it's going the wrong direction for you, you can just click that button. Rather than doing a blind cut, though, I'm going to do a through all cut, which means whatever is over there, cut through it. Doesn't matter. You can absolutely use a blind if you would like to, but this means if I were to make this back thicker or put something else behind it that I also wanted this to cut through, this would still cut. All right, and there we have our beautiful chair. Look at that. It's amazing. Really good job following along with this. I hope you learned something. Take some time, play with this a little bit. Add a different pattern onto the back. Change your legs to round legs instead of square legs. Play with relations, see what happens. Hopefully you can see that they're super useful. And they're definitely something I didn't really learn until later on. All right. Good job. See you later.